Pioneer Managing Director since our establishment in 2008. Dr. Popola holds a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Ife. He has 2 master's degrees in banking and finance and economics from the University of Lagos. Both these universities are in Nigeria. He also has a PhD in finance from the Wits Business School, University of Witwatersrand, South Africa. He's an alumnus of the prestigious Lagos Business School and the Wharton Business School. He's a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria and 7 other professional bodies. Join me in welcoming our host and moderator for today, Dr. Tunde Popola, Managing Director, CEO, CRC Credit Bureau Limited. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peggy, for the very kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. I want to say a big thank you for joining us this morning to be part of this event. Once again, my name is Tunde Popola, and I will be the moderator for this event this morning. I also double as the CEO and the host for this event. So I will start straight away by going into welcoming you formally as the chief host for this event. And then I will then move on to, starting my role as the moderator for the event. It's my honor to welcome you to this event. I want to share, just so that you can follow me properly as I make my presentation to you. So I welcome you all, and it's my honor to welcome you to this webinar today. This is the 5th in the series of our webinars since COVID started, but this is the first that we are doing this year. Since COVID-19 has forced the world to adopt better and more efficient use of technology, we have been able to put together a series of programs and activities that would have been impossible to do physically. The number of participants, the regularity of our webinars, sessions, and training programs we have put together, and the breadth and quality of speakers we have attracted to our events will have been expensive and probably impossible. So it's gratifying to know that the pandemic is bad, but it has also produced its own positive sides and opportunities. We are glad and satisfied that we searched for and embraced the opportunities that this time has offered us. CRC Credit Bureau has put this event together under its CSR initiative called You and Credit. You and Credit is the vehicle or the platform we use to provide financial education to the generality of Nigerians. The initiative as CSR focuses on credit education in particular and financial education in general. We have, through the You and Credit platform, collaborated with various institutions to educate consumers and small businesses and small business owners on the benefit of responsible borrowing and the evil of poor loan management. For the information of some of our participants who may not be very familiar with our organization, I think I need to talk briefly about CRC Credit Bureau. The CRC Credit Bureau was licensed in 2009 by the Central Bank of Nigeria and commenced live operations the same year. As a credit bureau, our mandate is to help our country to experience increase in and easy access to credit, especially for consumers and small businesses, popularly called MSMEs. We do this by providing lenders and creditors with relevant information that help them advance and manage credit with confidence. Through our products, services, and initiatives, we help financial institutions and other creditors in general to have access to relevant information to manage the entire lending value chain. These include identifying the right persons and entities to grant loans to or to give postpaid services to assess credit application with facts and taking decisions to lend or not to lend in a very short time and to attend to large number of customers. We also help to provide relevant information that enables monitoring of portfolios once credits have been advanced. We provide services that enable more efficient and effective default and collections management. And finally, we produce products and services that enable our customers have greater insight into their customers. CRC has developed quite a number of products, about 16 in total to date. The three most recent products that we developed are the CRC Mobile, the COVID Likelihood, and the CRC Returnex. And I think I should just mention those three. The CRC Mobile enables everyone to have access to their credit information and credit score via their telephone. Somebody has posted this morning on the chat to ask how you can get his credit report. So you can download CRC Mobile on your app, CRC Mobile app, either through Apple Store or Google Play, and you can then go into looking for your credit report or credit score. You also can go to our website to do the same. The second product, which is also very recent, is what we call the COVID Likelihood. COVID Likelihood was, developed in response to the challenges of non-payment of loans and the challenges that businesses and consumers face during this time. With COVID Likelihood product, we have produced a predictive analytics tool that assists our customers to be able to accurately predict the likely impact of COVID-19 on their customers' loan repayment and performance. And quite a lot of institutions are using that. The latest, which I've just introduced to the market, is called CRC Returnex. CRC Returnex is a business management solution that enables lenders generally to know who among their borrowers, their customers, will likely come back for another loan in the future. And if they are going to come for another loan, will they come to their bank or will they go somewhere else? That way it helps them to know who to focus on and thereby save costs in management, in relationship management. Our job is to promote information sharing, reduce the incidence of haphazard selection and information asymmetry. In other words, we help our customers to share information among themselves with trust. We help them to make the right choices in whom to grant credit to or sell to on credit. And we are the neutral third party where they can obtain relevant, reliable, and timely information without bias. At present, we have almost 2,000 institutions as our customers who come to us every day to submit data and to access information from our database. As part of our achievement, we have assisted in bringing sanity into the lending space in Nigeria. Creditors now grant credit back with customers' information. The era of lending in the dark has gone in Nigeria. There's no doubt that we have contributed to the stimulation of consumer lending in Nigeria. Various credit products in form of consumer and retail loans are on the increase in Nigeria because of our activities. Most Nigerian commercial banks are now fully into consumer and retail lending, while a lot of them have dedicated desks and teams or units for lending to SMEs. One implication of what I've just stated is that loans to individuals and consumers are on the rise in Nigeria. Even though credit penetration is still very low in Nigeria, but you realize that there has been significant improvement in access to loan and credit for consumers and retailers and SMEs in recent time. It's also important to state that credit bureaus generally assist in bringing down the rate of non-performing loans in the economy where they operate. Lenders generally now access the credit bureau to request for credit reports and credit scores of potential borrowers and applicants for credit. Like I said, the era of lending in the dark is gone because we have credit information to work with now. The credit report contains the credit history of the individuals and corporate entities that have borrowed in the past. The CRC credit score, on the other hand, is a 3-digit number that has that ranges between 300 and 850. And that indicates the riskiness of a consumer or individual borrower. Where the credit score is low, it means that customer is a very risky customer. Where it is high, it means the customer there's less risk in loan repayment as far as that customer is concerned. We have assisted in reducing the rate of non-performing loans, and I think now we have rate of non-performing loans in the industry hovers around 6%, even though the threshold the CBN will be comfortable with 5%, and I think that's still a good one. As a credit bureau, we are in the business of data provision of information and promotion of information sharing in the financial services industry in particular. We have long ago recognized the fact that the direction of information dissemination and availability among players in an economy is and will henceforth be driven by data and the ease with which player can have access to such data. We recognize the fact that the application and deployment of APIs as the tool for information sharing among operators in the financial services industry is the way to go. So on June 5, 2020, we partner with FinTech Nigeria, and that's an umbrella organization for fintechs that operate in Nigeria. And we organized a webinar captioned Capitalizing on the API Economy. We as a bureau deals with one side of the financial intermediation equation by holding and disseminating data only on credit activities. It will be complete when open access to information on deposit and payment system is also now allowed and is practiced. It is therefore not strange that today we are discussing open banking. And as a player in the data management sector of the Nigeria economy, we are encouraged and proud to organize this webinar to discuss this. So today the discussion is on open banking and its implications for payment systems and access to credit in Nigeria. The subject of open banking has attracted a great level of attention in recent times in the world. It is in response to, or should I say, an outcome of the hugely disruptive but positive impact of the introduction of IT solutions and innovation into financial services, and the ever-increasing desire for bank customers in particular to derive convenience in access to financial services and in conducting their financial transactions that made us to begin to go into this direction. So that positive disruption that we witness every day as banks and financial institutions keep on looking for ways to please their customers and make life easy for them, has, transformed banking and financial services landscape generally in Nigeria and throughout the world. For those of us who have been in the space for a long time, I recall, for instance, just to start my own personal experience, I participated in the NYSC scheme in the 80s. And I remember that at that time, the NYSC account officers will have to go around the places of primary assignment of corpers to pay us our 200 naira allowance every month. They have to carry cash around to pay us our 200 naira every month in our places of primary assignments. Corpers didn't use to open any account at that time. You didn't need to open any account because your allowance was paid to us in cash. I served in Tara Namoda, the current Zamfara state, but it was then in Sokoto state. And then later I joined banking, or before I joined banking, I joined the civil service. And at that time, when you issue a check, when you write your check, you first of all go and deposit it in the bank, and then come back, take a tally number. They give you this coin-like kind of round object that indicates the number. And then you go back 2, 3, 4, 5 hours later, you can come back. Maybe by that time, it will have been your turn to collect your money. Because at that time, processing a check for payment probably require going through about 6 or 7 desks. And for clearing, it's even worse. Some clearing, when it's up country, took almost 21 days before you can get your check cleared and you get value for it. And then the era of the third generation bank, the so-called third generation bank, came in, and they began to invest heavily in technology and information technology at that. And so having the queue in the banking hall started disappearing. And I remember the bank I worked for then introduced telephone and internet banking system in 1999. Now, when you fast forward that today and we see the kind of things that are happening in the payment system and in the access to credit, is very breathtaking to see the kind of milestone that we have achieved in access, in ease that customers go through in having access to their accounts. The adoption of open banking is another one step in that direction. of the journey of the deployment of technology solutions to financial services. Open banking promotes the use of APIs. Today, it's not my job to deliver a paper or make a presentation on open banking. My job is just to welcome you and to moderate this occasion. I therefore wish to express my appreciation to you all for being part of this webinar. I believe it promises to be educative and informative. And I'm confident at the end of this session, we will have been able to have a deeper and better appreciation and understanding of the concept and practice of open banking. What is open banking? How does it affect us? We will be familiar with the provisions of the framework recently received by the Central Bank in February 2021. I know that practitioners will be able to seek further clarification on gray areas that they have not had the opportunity to seek through other mediums. So it's an opportunity that we are providing this morning for people to seek clarification on the concept of open banking, the practice of open banking, the implementation, the security, the challenges, and so on and so forth. We should be able to see how open banking will meet the core objectives stated in the framework that was released by the Central Bank. Those core objectives include access to increase, ease in payment system, enhancing financial inclusion, and improve access to credit. Is open banking really able to do this? If it's going to be able to do this, what are the things we have to get right in implementation? What are the challenges we will face in the implementation of the framework, and how should we address those issues? How will the practice of open banking affect you and me, the ordinary people, and then our businesses? And finally, will open banking complement the services of credit bureaus in Nigeria, or will it adversely impact our operations? How will it affect the credit bureau? So these are some of the questions that we think open banking, this conversation we are having today, will address. In February 2021, the CBN released its operational framework for open banking in Nigeria. And the release was signed by the Apex Bank's Director of Payment Systems Management Department, Mr. Musa Aijimo. With that framework, Nigeria takes its #1 position in Africa in the formal adoption and introduction of open banking. We are following the footsteps of about other 46 countries in the world that have done so. We are so excited to have the Central Bank with us this morning. Mr. Jimo, the Director, Payment Systems Management Department, Central Bank of Nigeria, who signed that framework that was released on February 17, 2021, gladly accepted to be the keynote speaker at this event, and we are so grateful unto him. He has been in the issue of e-payment, digitalization, delivery channels, and so on and so forth for decades, even before he assumed duty in the Central Bank. And at Central Bank, as the Director for Payment System Management, it falls on his desk to promote and make sure that we get this right. So he is here with us this morning, but he's being represented by one very also, a good expert in the area of payment system in his department, in person of Mr. Olubukola Akinwumi. Mr. Olubukola Akinwumi is an assistant director in the Payment System Management Department. He is the one that leads the team that is responsible for formulation of payment system policies and the facilitation of stakeholder consensus on payment system development strategy in Nigeria. He has participated in various, initiatives by the Central Bank, and he writes regularly on payment issues and disruptive technology in CBN, that very respected magazine called The Bullion. He's a chartered accountant, and he also holds a master's degree in economics. I welcome Mr. Olubukola Akinwumi, and I thank you so much for representing the director at this event. We have two other speakers who will then speak and make presentation after the keynote address that will be delivered by Mr. Akinwumi. The first of them is Mr. Adedeji Olowe. Mr. Adedeji Olowe is a trustee of open banking in Nigeria. For several years, Adedeji Olowe has been in the forefront of the introduction and adoption of open banking in Nigeria. He rallied other interested stakeholders together to champion the adoption of open banking. His optimism about the magic of open banking to provide answers to the challenges of payment systems access to consumer credit, and financial institutions can be seen from his writings, his presentations, and interviews. It is as if he believes that with the adoption of open banking, all our problems in financial services will be addressed and solved. He is a veteran when it comes to industry issues, financial services industry issue. And as you can see on the screen, he also has been in the vanguard, in the forefront of promoting the connectivity and access information sharing in the country. If you Google his name, most of the things you will be seeing about him is open banking. And so we'll be listening to him this morning as well, as he takes us through what some things we need to know about open banking. And then the last but not the least is Mr. Deji Oguntonade, who is a veteran and a guru of the financial services industry in Nigeria. The second part of Mr. Oguntonade's over 3 decades career in the financial services industry has been in payment solutions. He is an industry practitioner with decades of practical experience. In his banking career, he led groundbreaking initiatives and product development in payment solutions as the head of fintech and innovation and then electronic payments at one of the most respected banking brands in Nigeria, GTB. He's credited with the implementation of such payment services such as FlashMe Cash that was launched in 2002 and Bank 737 that was launched in 2014 by GT. So he currently is the Director of Digital Payments for Nigeria for the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, still focusing on issues that have to do with payment system, digitalization, and so on and so forth. So you'll agree with me that we are indeed blessed to have these three speakers with us today to discuss this theme on open banking and access to credit and payments in Nigeria. As you can see, they are eminently qualified to do justice to the topic and to respond to the questions and comments that will come from their presentations. Without wasting much of your time again, I think I want to now move on to enable the first speaker, who is Mr. Olubukola Akinwumi, representing the Director of Payment System Management, Mr. Musa Jimo, to deliver the keynote address. Let me also say that the question and answer part of you can put your questions, your answers, your comments, you can always share it. We will try to answer as many questions as we can. And then, of course, when we are patient, we will get you all the slides that are going to be presented at this session today. I really want to thank you. I want to welcome you, and I want to leave the floor now open for the keynote speaker to deliver the keynote speech. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Olubukola Akinwumi, it's your turn now to present your keynote speech, the keynote speech of Director Payment System Management.
Thank you very much, Dr. Popola. It's the pleasure of the Director of Payment System Management Department to present this keynote address at your webinar. Unfortunately, he had planned to be here this morning to present it by himself, but due to other pressing official matters, he has asked me to present this speech on his behalf. Having observed all protocols, I want to say that I'm delighted to have the privilege to give the keynote address at this event. Indeed, your choice of discussion today on open banking is very apt at this period, especially as it affects developments in payment system and credit services in Nigeria. The value creation for customers has become very important.
Hello, Mr. Akinwumi, I can't hear you anymore. Okay, I can't hear Mr. Akinwumi anymore. I hope he will return shortly. It should be the network from wherever he's presenting from, maybe in Abuja. Okay. Okay, so let's hope Mr. Kiwume will join us back very shortly. We have provided opportunity for chat and Q&A. You can put in your comments, your questions there. And then we try to go through them. And I know the speakers, the three speakers, will do justice to them when it's time for Q&A and comments. I still wait to see that Mr. Akinwumi will join us shortly. But if he's not, I think Mr. Adedeji Olowe should be getting ready to make the first presentation. And when Mr. Akinwumi returns, we will allow him to finish the delivery of the keynote speech of the Director of Payment System Management Department of the Central Bank of Nigeria. So let me give the floor now to Mr. Adedeji Olowe to make the first presentation of the day.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. Can you hear me very well?
I can hear you, but it's low. The audio is low. Can you just increase your volume a bit? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is this better now?
I don't mind if you can share your picture. You can see you.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Thank you so much, Mr. Dr. Popola, and thanks for everybody for making today. I'll just quickly run through this presentation, but I'm not going to be academic about it because when it comes to credit is one, I would say, is one of the primary use cases for open banking. Because ultimately open banking by itself is a means to an end and not an end in itself. And the means to an end really is to allow Nigerians, right, to be able to have access to a better life, either as financial inclusion or access to credit or to savings, the ability to create wealth. And we start asking ourselves questions like, what has open banking got to do with credit? And you ask that question. Well, I will quickly just run through what open banking is about, and then we talk about what open banking will do for credit. So we always talk about igniting innovation with a common API standard. And the reason why we say this is because standards are very boring. They are not things like people like. They are not things that come up at dinner tables or you are having a gist with your friend. But standards are the underpinning of every modern society. And let me give you a classic example. Say you have a car today and you want to change your tires, right? I'm very sure that your tire is actually also not made by your car manufacturer. What do? You check, there's a certain number you check on the tire, maybe the rim size and the width and the rest of them. And then you send somebody to Ladipo market to get the tire. And then the tire comes and it fits. And the reason why it works is because there's a standard. If that standard has shifted just a little bit, there would have been total chaos because it would have been possible for all the cars to have different tires. Same thing we have in the industry. We're asking ourselves, if our ATM cards work because they follow a certain standard, and our cards work, our car tires work, our SIM card enter into our phone, then we ask ourselves, why is it that so much has to do with banking and APIs that two different banks will be speaking to different languages? And this is an example of what the problem that open banking is trying to solve. It's not bringing out anything different that we wanted to do, but we want all of us to speak with a single language. And that is what open banking Nigeria is all about. So we always say that the future of banking is open, and it's always, for me, I won't call myself a prophet, but it's something I can wager $1 billion on. Well, I wish I had $1 billion to wager. And the reason being that, look, today, even light bulbs have APIs that control it because the world is such a connected place. We know very well, no matter how much banking or finances or insurance hold back, a time will come when everything will be driven by APIs. Not because APIs is the interesting thing to do. It just makes sense to use it to do one's life. And we've seen what the power of this will be. So we believe that the future of banking is open. So the whole essence of what we are trying to do in Nigeria for open banking, which CBN is now leading, is to have a common API standard for the financial industry. And what will it do? It will reduce the time to market for financial products. It will reduce the barrier for innovation and reduce financial exclusion. Everybody knows that credit and financial exclusion, they're like cousins. They go hand in hand together, right? And open banking is not a Nigerian thing. I know a lot of us are hearing it in Nigeria for the first time, but in reality, we actually, the vanguard or the leaders, global leaders in open banking is in the UK. But the reason why they set up open banking is totally different from us. They set up open banking because they wanted to break the stranglehold of the top 9 biggest banks on the economy, right? We started talking about open banking, working with CBN and stakeholders because we believe that open banking can open up innovation and financial services for all Nigerians, especially for the 60 million adults that don't have access to financial services. And it's all over the world. For seven countries are doing it, and of course, Nigeria, we don't slack. We lead Africa as far as open banking is concerned. And even before the CBN came out with the regulation last month, in February, it was already clear right from 2019 when the PSV 2030 came out, and right there at number 2, as far as Paris is concerned, is the open banking in Nigeria, and they've done a good job. They've done a good job of that. And the work itself is just starting. It's just starting out. And when we ask ourselves, why are we trying to do open banking? Why do we believe open banking will bring innovation, right? And I think this is a problem that I would believe someone like Dr. Popola will know. You are integrated to all the banks across Nigeria, right? And I'm very sure I don't think 2 banks have the same integration approach with you, even when they use the same core bank application. And then you'll probably be asking yourself, I want to get customer records, I want to get balances, I want to get loan performance and the rest of it. Why am I doing different integration? Those are the realities. I know for sure if all the banks have exposed the same interface to you, I don't know how long it took you to set up CRC and integrate with all the banks, but I'm very sure it will have taken you less than 10% of the time it took you if one single code you wrote was everything. Now, CRC is a well-funded company, right? Now, think of the young boys, the next paster, the next Flutterwave in Nigeria that are just thinking of the idea in their dorm rooms, or they are just working as young people in young companies. Do you think they have money and the time to create the next generation of very innovative products? They probably don't have the money, they don't have the time. But by making open APIs accessible, available to everybody, we believe innovation can be sorted. This is what we think would happen. And we've seen, even despite the challenges of Africa, the challenges of Nigeria, right? We have seen what people have created. Just imagine what much more they can do if all these things are easier to do. Now, of course, adopting open banking will always be beneficial to everybody, to banks, to fintech, to customers, but most importantly to customers when they talk to about access to credit. And this is one of the reasons why CRC is driving this today, right? We'll talk about access to credit for individuals, access to credit for MSMEs, access to ability to save. People want to save and create wealth with the little they have. People want to be able to do transactions cheaply, quicker, and better. Those are the benefits. Of course, when you talk to fintechs, I will try to assume, I know Dr. Popola did not say it, but let's imagine that CRC is a fintech as well. Today, you know that your coverage of loan credit data is not sufficient, right? Today, I know that you can probably still grow 20 times more with barely scratching the surface. With open banking and everybody using it, there is a strong possibility that you can provide much more. And just imagine when somebody calls CRC and you don't have that data, you can call banks and get the data online real time to process it. Those are the possibilities that exist for everybody. Of course, open banking comes, every good thing comes with some baggages at the back as well. People are worried about privacy breaches. It's just, was it like about 2 days ago that about over 500 million records on Facebook just came out. And that is another wala that they have to be dealing with. Privacy breaches is a serious, serious problem. We've seen videos of people using other people's BVN to create loans, and those are realities that we are dealing with. Data security is there, cyber threats and attack. We've heard of banks getting attacked and getting their data kind of encrypted, and we've seen what fraudsters are doing and kidnappers are doing with crypto to, is a different market by itself. Those are the risks that has to come with it. But for each of these risks, they are well-defined and respected and proven methods to deal with that. And those are some of the things that CBN is looking at as well, in terms of when by the time we do open banking, let us, all of us, be alive at the other side to enjoy the benefit, not that we bring the out. Now, so let's talk about use cases for open banking. Of course, CBN always talk about financial system, right? Today, we are all lucky, we are here online, we are the middle class of Nigeria, but I will let us know that, look, while we have about 43 million Nigerians with BVN that have financial services, about 60 million Nigerians don't have access, adults don't have access to financial services. And we strongly believe that, look, in the spirit of, they just have to be able to enjoy what we are enjoying as well, because it's almost like a fundamental human right. And not having access to financial services, being financially excluded, can mean the difference between life and death, can mean that your kids don't have access to a better future, right? So having access to financial inclusion is critical for the whole country, and it's one of the use cases. How is it working as a use case? If you look at super agency right now, they have agents across last miles in peri-urban and rural areas where the normal banks will not go, where some of us cannot even find on maps. Now, these agents that are there can't keep money. They are not banks, so they are not licensed to be banks. They need banks on the other side to be able to hold the money. By using open banking, a super agent can open an account in a bank that is licensed, even though the bank is in Lagos and is shy of going to Kaura and Amoda, like Dr. Popola mentioned, right? And the agent is using open banking APIs to connect with different banks and serving those guys at the edge. Everybody's happy. Banks don't want to go to Kaura and Amoda. Fine, stay in Lagos. Agents don't want to come to Lagos and want to serve people in the rural and peri-urban areas. Everybody's happy. Now, that is one use case for open banking. We see the opportunity for bringing in probably 50, 60 million Nigerians over the next 2-3 years into the financial services. And we don't need to think about, how a bank makes money from them. All we need to do is ask the telcos. If you ask MTN today, ask Airtel today, the people we think they are poor and downtrodden, they probably do more calls than some of us, right? Because they load the airtime, they buy 59 airtime, they speak for about 20 minutes, they're fine, right? And they don't need to, and they can do that multiple times. Same way with transactions. If the transaction is cheap and is effective, anyone can walk to their corner of the street in their own villages and do transfers to the next farmer in the next village, and he will get the money. So we talk about financial inclusion, and then we also believe that this will drive CBN's effort towards establishing a cashless economy. It will also help the central bank to regulate the financial industry in the age of digital. But one of the most important things for open banking is access to credit. Today, I can tell you that even for Nigerians that have data, if you look into the alternative lending space in Nigeria today, like millions and millions of these guys don't have their records with credit bureau. So I'm a lender, I connect to CRC, and I want to look for Deji. But Deji's record is not there. So as a lender today, what do? I either take a risk, right, and say, okay, let's assume he's a good guy, and I give him credit, or I just move on with my life and I don't give him credit. Now, if Deji needs that money to take his aged grandmother to the hospital, that could be a life and death situation. Now, what does open banking do? Open banking sometimes will allow lenders to be able to connect to borrowers' account, see their transaction, make a decision, and there and then allow them to create the first credit record, right, to that even goes to places like CRC. Because what people in CRC and other credit bureaus are facing is chicken and egg problem. You will never see credit history for somebody who has never gotten credit. So there is always going to be one first time to do this thing. And also for likes of CRC, you are seeing the opportunity to, how would I call it, also connect to banks and provide, using your vast experience of analytics and scoring to help people turn raw transactional data, right, into what can be a score. Now, you mentioned a score today that I believe everybody will be very happy to have access to programmatically. Now, by having more access to data, it means that the likes of CRC can do these things. And then now let's ask ourselves, what will be the effect on the economy of Nigeria? Today, we did some research, desk research. There is about 51 trillion worth of credit gap in Nigeria today. Now, that 51 trillion means that it's an untapped field for everybody. I'm not sure if retail credit in Nigeria today is up to 500 billion. Now, we know very well that by making credit available, there will be consumption. We cannot grow this economy without retail credit. So we know that without retail credit, we are not going anywhere. But without access to data, we cannot create credit. Without open banking, we can't have access to data. So, Dr. Popola, you can have an idea why I've used part of my life to champion this, because we believe that this standard has a chance to actually create a foundation for how this country will grow. Yes, we need the government to do roads, to do a lot of things, right? But the government itself is also saying, I am not seeing taxes, right? Without taxes, I don't have money to build roads. How will taxes come? Taxes will come from economic activities. Economic activities come from people spending, but people spending come from money. That is where credit comes in. Credit is, if done well, is one thing that can transform this country. There is no country in the world where they've succeeded without what we call access to credit. Now, those are the things we are trying to do. So where do we go from here? Basically, we are just asking industry stakeholders to join open banking and also join the effort by CBN to make sure this works and it works well. Open Banking Nigeria itself is a non-profit. It's not a fintech. It doesn't sell services. It doesn't receive money from everybody. We are privately funded by ourselves and well-wishers, but we are so focused on making sure that this country that we call our own, it can only become great when we all come together and create sustainable framework, standards, efforts, collaborate. So that's what open banking is about, what we're trying to do, and the use case. Thank you, Dr. Popola. If there are questions, I can take them now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lowe. That was very straightforward, insightful, and enriching for us, and I guess for all the participants. Thank you very much. I know questions will start streaming in, and we'll ask those questions to make clarification to some of the presentations, some of the things we have said. I mean, I was, when I had 51 trillion gap in credit, say, wow, we are not even at 30 trillion as we speak, you know, so it's still a lot that can be done. And, you know, I mentioned it in my presentation too, that the credit penetration is extremely very low. So if this is going to be the game changer we've been looking for, to enhance access to credit for everyone, I think that will be very interesting. You also talk about financial inclusion, and I think that's an area that is also very important. Maybe this is one thing that will help CBN to achieve what they have been hammering in the last, you remember Vision 2020, part of it in the FSS 2020, FSS 2020. And financial inclusion is, I think it's to achieve 70% financial inclusion. So
80%.
80%. So maybe Mr. Akinwumi will talk around that later. Maybe this will help us to wrap it up and make sure that we even achieve more than 80% financial inclusion when this becomes fully operational. So I know Mr. Akinwumi is back now. Let me give the floor to him to complete the keynote speech before I go to Mr. Mutonade for the second presentation. So Mr. Akinwumi, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I apologize to everyone. There was a network glitch. Thank you, Mr. Adedeji Olowe, for the wonderful presentation. I'll continue with the director's speech. As I was saying earlier on, the events, the COVID-19 pandemic over the period, over the last 12, 13 months has disrupted a lot and has created opportunities for us to reevaluate how businesses are done. And as a result of that, the bank has introduced various initiatives to respond to the pandemic as it applies to the economy. The bank took policy measures to cushion the adverse economic impact of the pandemic through such initiatives as extending moratorium on all principal repayments on CBN intervention loans. In addition, the bank granted targeted regulatory forbearance to deposit money banks to restructure loans for businesses and households in certain sectors. Also, the bank reduced the interest rates with respect to CBN intervention to 5% per annum with a year moratorium. The growth in electronic payments engineered through various policies of the bank, including cashless policy, the national payment system strategy, and the financial inclusion strategy, which Dr. alluded to earlier. To mention a few, has spurred other innovative financial services in recent times, especially in the areas of lending and investment. This was made possible by the capacity of electronic payments to capture data flows, and where customers are willing, they have accessed innovative products by availing service provider the rights to their data in one form or the other. Thus, data sharing has contributed to innovative and new financial services and products. The delivery of financial services to customers is now being unbundled and offered by non-bank third parties. These parties may also create new services that banks can leverage, adding value to the delivery chain, which are aspects of open banking. Therefore, open banking, the sharing and leveraging of customer permission data by banks and third-party firms to build applications and services, provide an opportunity for growth in financial service offerings, greater financial transparency for account holders, and competition in the financial services sector. Of course, we expect also that this will impact positively on credit. Our environment, we believe, is very ripe for open banking, considering the various interaction we have started observing among industry operators. We've observed the use of API, and as such, the bank decided to step in to ensure that these are done within a regulated environment. As such, ladies and gentlemen, the Central Bank of Nigeria, in furtherance of its mandate for the stability of the financial system, has developed and issued the regulatory framework on open banking in Nigeria. The framework, recently approved by the bank and issued in February 2021, is specifically for banking and other related financial services such as payments, remittances, collection and disbursement, personal finance, advisory and management, treasury management, credit ratings and scoring, for which CRC is known for, mortgage and leasing, hire purchase, and other services as may be determined by the bank. Nonetheless, the framework reflects the bank's commitment to best-in-class international standards for the Nigerian banking industry, while taking due cognizance of risk management as it applies to our environment. Mr. Adedeji rightly said earlier on that it's very important for us to ensure that we manage the risk of cybersecurity, cyber attacks, and also to manage the issue of data privacy. And these are things that the framework tries to address. Consequently, open banking can provide the required infrastructure in bridging the gaps and challenges around payments and credit management. And we hope its adoption will aid the existing initiatives by the Central Bank of Nigeria, banks, and fintechs. Some of the expected open banking initiatives to banks and credit bureau in Nigeria include new partnerships within the financial services sector among banks, fintech companies, credit bureau, and other stakeholders within the financial services space. Of course, we expect that there will be collaborations because the era of open banking actually opens up opportunities for partnerships. Other benefits are increased efficiencies by banks through outsourcing of some or parts of their value chain like KYC, AML, and credit scoring through credit bureau, use of APIs to build products for scoring, and ultimately development of the digital services in Nigeria. Undeniably, the support of everyone is required for the continuous development of a national payment system. In summary, we believe that we have set the pace through the framework, and we are delighted to have other stakeholders join us. Specifically, it is expected that more of the operational guidelines to actually have the open banking regime kickoff will be developed within the shortest possible time, and Nigerians will have the benefits that are the benefits derivable from the open banking regime. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akinwumi. Thank you. I've seen some questions that will be for you, so please stay and be ready to answer some of the questions. There are so many people who are interested in how CBN will ensure that the risks, some of the risks that are inherent in open banking, Mr. Olowe mentioned some of them. What is the regulator going to do to ensure confidence and trust, so that trust people can enhance, have trust in it as the data is shared and connectivity is made open to have access to information. So thank you very much. I'm also happy you mentioned that there will be operational guidelines related to the framework, which will be communicated very soon. I guess some of the conversation we are having this morning will help also to get into what you are looking at in the operational guidelines. Thank you very much. So at this stage, I think I will leave the floor now. I yield the floor now to Mr. Adeji Oguntonade. We have two Dejis here. We have Adedeji, we have Deji. So Mr. Oguntonade is, I've introduced him. He's been so familiar. Actually, most part of his banking career has been dedicated to payment solutions and digitalization. And he is a proud person to say that he's been able to introduce a lot of initiatives even when he was at a commercial bank. And now where he's sitting, representing Rockefeller Philanthropy as the director of digital, so he's able to also make contribution to payment solutions in Nigeria and Africa. And also, I know he also has very good relationship with the central bank, Department of Payment Systems Management. So, Mr. Oguntonade, the floor is yours. Good morning. Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Popola. Good morning, everyone. All protocols duly observed. I've had two experts precede my own presentation, so I'll just do my best to add my own 2 cents to the discussions. I'll focus on something that's dear to my heart, and that's financial inclusion. So I'll share my screen now. Okay, can we see my screen?
Yes, we can, please.
Okay, so the title of my presentation is Accelerating Financial Inclusion Using Open Banking. Okay, here's my agenda. I'll define open banking. I'll just take a quick look at the open banking framework as released by CBN, and then discuss who are the participants, and then focus on open banking and financial inclusion, and then also provide some next steps. I'll skip some slides for a couple of reasons. Either it's been presented by previous speakers, or it's something that we all know, but just for completeness, I have it in my presentation. Thank you. So definition, open banking, the exchange of consumer data between banks and other financial service providers on the basis of customer consent with other financial providers. And here we have the definitions also to follow. So an open banking regime is a consent-based data sharing scheme that's mandated or supported by the regulator towards the goal of creating competition and fostering innovation in financial services. So the framework that we've seen from the CBN is the beginning of an open banking regime that will soon start as we look at standards implementation. Now, looking at the CBN open banking framework, I'll just run through some objectives that I can see there. They want to provide an enabling environment for provision of innovative customer-centric financial services through the safe utilization and exchange of data and services. And they also want to define risk-based data access levels and service categorizations towards effective management of the risk in the operations of APIs. They also want to outline baseline requirements and standards for the exchange of this data and services amongst participants. And whilst doing so, we provide risk management guidance for operators in the financial services space that will leverage data and APIs for the same provision of services. And finally, to promote competition in banking and other financial services and enhance access to financial services. There are two main types of participants: entities that share data by mandate or voluntarily, who are data holders, and also entities that either have the right to access data or are permitted to access the data, that we can call data users. I'll run through this quickly. These are participants and roles. We can also look this up later. But we have the providers who use APIs to avail data to other participants. We also have the consumers that actually use these APIs released by the providers. We have the fintechs, and these are companies that provide innovative financial solutions, products and services, leveraging on these APIs that have been made available by providers as well. And in some cases, they may also become even providers depending on the structure. We have developers or the developer community, and these are entities that develop APIs or provide programming services for other participants. Now, what are the implications of this framework that's been released? You can see that there's going to be strategic partnerships and collaborations between fintechs and banks, and maybe even other institutions, thereby fostering product innovation and reducing the cost of operations. There's also open data. Data has to be shared, and this is will change customer behavior. There's going to be a need for standards, and therefore this will foster easy integration between parties, like Dejalawa has said, and to make things much easier. Things that will have taken you weeks and months, even years, it may just take you a few days or hours now, if APIs are standard. Now, as we open data, share data, there's going to be a need to be really up in the game in terms of security, and therefore cybersecurity is very important, and banks will need to strengthen risk management to mitigate security threats. Customer experience. Customer experience has to be very, very top of mind, especially as you are sharing your data, providers are sharing data with third parties. You have to be sure what kind of third parties you are sharing with, and also to ensure customer experience is seamless. And finally, financial inclusion. All this, in my opinion, leads to expanded opportunities in financial inclusion and penetration through digital innovations and services. And that to me is very key in terms of this open banking framework. And that's where my focus is actually, is this will definitely deepen financial inclusion. So looking at open banking and financial inclusion, CGAP in one of his publications said that when firms can access customers' financial data held by third parties, these firms create savings, credit, and financial management products that are better suited to poor people than those traditional banks have to offer. And that to me is saying, hey, financial inclusion, here we come. Now, how do we see this happening? What we can call, what are the expected outcomes? And I've listed a few. Smoothing volatile incomes. And what I'm saying there is that people have better opportunities to start saving money and saving for a rainy day in a more seamless manner. They're no more going to be living from hand to mouth. They'll be able to manage their funds better. Once there's open banking, there'll be lots more players who have access to this last mile customers, and therefore we'll see competition and therefore lowering of tariffs on bills and payments. We'll see overcoming lack of documentation. If we're able to bring in telcos or other data holders, we don't need all the cumbersome data required by banks to be able to open accounts, or we don't need to repeat account opening documentation if one entity has already done it. For example, why can't we use telco data to open accounts? At least they've collected everything. How about NIN registration? Why can't we use that data to open accounts? These are the things that we'll start seeing happening very, very actively. Of course, this will encourage healthy financial behaviors as people come up with innovative ways of helping you manage your money and spend your money. And also, we'll be able to responsibly expand access to credit, which is very key. Previous speakers has mentioned and highlighted access to credit, and I'm also highlighting that is very key for financial inclusion. And the way I see it, access will be deeper. Access will be more encompassing, and we'll start seeing people borrowing things like 50 naira, 100 naira, which banks will never touch. Also to support debt rehabilitation services, as there will be different options based on people or entities being able to see your full financial activity to buy over debts or to restructure debts on your behalf even before you ask. And then finally, reducing reliance on overdrafts and other excessively priced credit products. You see people offering cheaper options from all the current expensive options we have right now. So in terms of product innovation, open banking, if well implemented from the beginning, should include pathways that will allow for product innovation around financial services, and this will eventually impact access to financial services by the poor. And I've, without going to too much depth, just highlighted some suggested products, savings trackers, being able to track your savings, being able to save even in the traditional way of Agile and all that, digitally, utility switching, being able to pay your taxes, pay other bills, and pulling those payments from varied accounts that are available. And then there's also collaborative customer due diligence. This also is very applicable and very necessary in terms of offering credits. You don't have to rely on one source now. You can rely on multiple sources to pull information to be able to assess a customer in terms of credibility and also credit worthiness, and even beyond their financial data. budgeting. There'll be things that you can do around budgeting and how you spend your money. And then finally, low value credits. This is the most important to me. Is based on the vast amount of data that entities will have. They'll be able to make more informed decisions. They'll be able to make quicker decisions in terms of who to lend to and how much to lend to. There's a huge market of for low value credit, which is not being addressed right now. The telcos, to some extent, have addressed in terms of a restricted kind of product for airtime. But imagine I'm traveling from Lagos to Ibadan, and I know that I'm going to Ibadan. I'll meet my uncle there, who will give me money. I can borrow money as low as 1,000 naira to go to Ibadan. I mean, using my phone or something, and when I get there, I'll repay it back. So the opportunity for low value credit is very huge, and this is again very key for financial inclusion. What are the benefits to consumers? You'll see cost reduction as various entities try to struggle for share of mind of the customer. There has to be enhanced security for all this to work, and therefore, when there's enhanced security, the customers feel much safer that their money will not disappear overnight as they onboard themselves onto these platforms. And finally, the customer will have much more choices. They won't be restricted to expensive choices, and then they'll have an opportunity to compare before they select a choice that they have. There are also some challenges around open banking, which I see, also which we can overcome. The first here is implementation time. How long will it take for key participants to get up to speed with standards and infrastructure? The framework is out. The next thing we're expecting are the API standards. But how ready are all the institutions? Do we have the same mindset in trying to get the standards uniform and at the same time, or how we are approaching this? This is very key for success, and I'm hoping that as we gather together, that this will be top of mind for us. Technical expertise. There's open banking is still quite new, even though we have close or more than 40 implementations worldwide. But expertise is still very much in high demand. And my question is, how soon are we going to wrap up the expertise locally for us to have a successful implementation? Then in terms of participation, okay, is it voluntary yet, or is it mandatory? Will all financial institutions be mandated? Will fintechs be mandated? Will even non-banking financial institutions, or even non-financial institutions also be eventually mandated to also open up their data? These are questions that are still, again, we need to address in order to ensure that we have we achieve true success. Because what is just financial data if we don't have access to identity data, insurance data, telecoms data? If we club all this together, then we have a better implementation for open banking. I've mentioned security issues before, but it's good to note that the CBN has regulatory sandboxes, which is like a safe environment to test initiatives before they go live. So I think we have security covered, and we just have to look at the security APIs and the standards that we are also pushing out. Advocacy is important. We need to educate the public. We need to encourage the public and even participants on the need and the benefits to onboard onto open banking. And this is ongoing, but I'm sure to start in earnest now, and this will help to push us to meet our desired goals. Liability is another question. As a data provider that's providing data for a third party, who is liable when something goes wrong? All these are things that we need to look at and ensure that we incorporate into the standards, into the framework, and also for the governance of open banking as we move towards going live. So the major question again is, okay, what next? Clearly, implementation of open banking is dependent on collaboration, like previous speakers have also said, between fintechs, banks, non-banking financial institutions, and then most especially the regulator CBN, and maybe as time goes on, even other regulators. I've listed below a few key points to note that will make this journey smoother, and as we begin to more deliberations towards meeting our goal. So participation, is it mandatory or voluntary? The technical standards, how are we going to start to fashion on those standards? As when the consultation starts, and when we get all the participants involved in ensuring that these standards are quickly set up. Do we have technical experts that will help us with these standards? We've seen other implementations worldwide. Are we taking learnings from that now to help us create our own technical standards? Stage implementation that's wiser, and we shouldn't rush everything at once. Let's learn as we go. Of course, for now, our lead regulator is central bank, and therefore we are following their lead and mandate. Of course, there's to be governance structures, cost distribution in terms of what kind of costs I'm going to see as we implement these standards as well. Data privacy is important. I've mentioned liability as well, and I've also mentioned advocacy. But we have to look at all these points to ensure that we have a great implementation of open banking, the first of its kind in Africa. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. I'll take questions now or later.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was very, very detailed, and it has fully complemented the presentation by Mr. Olowe. And so we covered the major areas we would like to cover in this webinar. Areas relating to financial inclusion, in particular, you do well, and the challenges that are likely to see. I'm also excited that you mentioned the kind of products and services that are likely to emerge as we adopt this. So now the floor is open for us to have interactions. There have been a series of questions and comments. What I intend to do is to just give each of you 2 or 3 questions for the first round, and then you just answer them briefly. When we are able to do that successfully, we can then take another round of questions and then answer them in that regard. So, Mr. Akinwumi, just first of all deliver the questions, and then you just note them, and then you answer them in turn. First, Mr. Akinwumi, then Mr. Olowe, and then Mr. Oguntono, then in that order. Someone asked, what is financial inclusion and what is financial exclusion? So we have financial inclusion. Does that mean we have financial exclusion? What's the difference between the two? The second question is, how prepared is the central bank to take on the challenges of, especially around risk and security and breaches of data that are likely to arise as a result of the adoption of open banking in Nigeria? How ready is central bank? Then the third one is, what level of awareness creation is the central bank ready to do to support this initiative? From the questions that I've seen, people are still asking, there's still a question, there are questions that say, what is open banking? Even after the presentation, some people are still asking, what is open banking? And how does it affect them, as the case may be? So what kind of awareness creation is the central bank ready to do to further promote the knowledge, the awareness, and the impact that this will have on them? And that takes me to Mr. Olowe. The question for you to get ready for is, how does open banking impact me as an individual, or impact my business as an individual? Someone asked that question. In other words, all these things we are talking about, the bottom line is it affects the customers one way or the other. It affects us as citizens one way or the other. It affects us as business people one way or the other. how does it affect? What are the things that we should look out for on the implications of open banking and the impact on us as consumers, as businesses, and as citizens of the country? The second one is somebody so how is this different from what CRC is doing? CRC is bringing data together, is connecting people, connecting institutions through API. So how is it different? How would this affect then the next one to that, as a corollary to that, is how will it affect the business of a credit bureau institution like CRC, who is in the business of data and information sharing already? Like I presented in my address, I said, well, we are the other one side of information dissemination, which is about credits. But people still want to know, would this, how will it deepen the bureau business? Will it, take them off, and so on and so forth? That's the second one. The third one is what do we need to get right in this whole essence of preparation for the adoption of open banking, to make it really worthwhile, to achieve those benefits that both you and Mr. Oguntonade in particular have spoken about. And then to Mr. Oguntonade, the first question is, how excited are you, or do you think the financial institutions are in adopting open banking? When it comes to industry initiatives, there are always this body language of let's watch and see and so on and so forth. I know when we came in as Credit Bureau in 2009, it took a while. Nigerian banks were not used to sharing information among themselves. Now everybody can see everybody's information, as the case may be. How excited do you think the financial institutions are or should be in the adoption of open banking? And then the second one, how costly can this be for financial institutions and others? Because you mentioned around cost, you mentioned the issue of cost. Is this something expensive to latch on? And then the third one is, who are the critical stakeholders that will make this happen seamlessly? Who are the critical stakeholders, and what role they have to play to ensure that we have a successful open banking system? And when all this is done, how would the system look like? Let's say we now fully adopt open banking. What would the system look like? What would the landscape look like for us in Nigeria? So let's start answering those questions from Mr. Akinwumi, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Popola. Starting with the question on inclusion and exclusion. Basically, the idea of financial inclusion is to extend access to basic financial services, savings, payments, credit, to various demographics of customers across different classes, across different groupings, to ensure that they have access to basic services, basic financial services, and to ensure that it is available to them at a price that is affordable, and also at a price that is sustainable for the provider of the financial service. So the intention or the strategy is to get as many Nigerians included in the financial services space. 80% inclusion level, and that's as at the first release of the financial inclusion strategy, and we are hoping to move it further to 95% based on the revised version of the financial inclusion strategy. Some of the initiatives the banks, the Central Bank of Nigeria have rolled out are all geared towards improving the level of financial inclusion. So when you talk of exclusion, we are saying how many Nigerians, adult Nigerians in this case, that are unable to access at an affordable rate financial services. In this case, let's start with savings products, payments products, and basic credits as well. Now, if exclusion rate is the level at which and then the percentage of adult Nigerians that are unable to access financial services. So that's as regards inclusion and exclusion. Now, the interesting question about how ready is CBN in this era of open banking, especially as it has to do with the risk of data breaches and how do we want to manage the incidences of cyber attacks. Now, if you look at the framework, we have full understanding of the challenges that may arise as a result of the use or the exchange of data. First is that in the era of open banking, it is essential that customers' consent is obtained. That's the very basic step that every stakeholder will have to abide with. Customers' consent is very key because at the heart of it is the customer. Apart from obtaining customers' consent, we outlined different categories of access to ensure that those who have access to data or those who can share data are guided by the framework to the extent of what data that can be shared and to what category of participants within the open banking landscape. Now, we've categorized participants based on their risk maturity. As such, we have determined that the certain categories of participants may not be as matured in managing risk with respect to data and other risk elements. And therefore, the kind or the category of data that can be accessed are limited or restricted based on the level of risk management maturity. Aside that, the roles and responsibilities of various participants are clearly articulated. And in addition to that, we also have clear risk management measures outlined. We have, of course, within the Central Bank of Nigeria, the appropriate structure to oversee the operations of participants with respect to open banking and to ensure compliance. Aside that, we are also upscaling in terms of the necessary regulatory technology that will ensure that we are able to monitor the space, notwithstanding that we are collaborating, which is very key, with stakeholders to ensure that we get this right from the outset. And that is why at this stage, we have commenced discussions with various stakeholders within the industry on how to come up with a common standard. The issue of common standard will also help us manage the issue of concerns around breaches and cyber attacks. So we are coming together as an industry and we are facilitating that process to have common standards as opposed to varying standards, which may also allow some of us to drop the ball in terms of managing security. The operational guidelines will also be released to further guide participants. And if you look at the framework, there is a section deliberately focused on consumer protection. In addition to the consumer protection framework, in the era of open banking, there are specific provisions made. For example, because I know most of the participants here, a good number will be those who will be impacted in one form or the other. For example, in the framework, if after accessing or using a particular application which allows, which leverage open banking to provide credits to a customer, for example, if the customer has used the product and maybe 180 days later, he hasn't touched that product at all. And there is still need to access data by, say, CRC, for example, on its performance in the previous experience with that product. It will be necessary for the bank or the service provider to again seek consent of the customer before such data is released. So the responsibility is placed on the operators, and the operators are well guided based on the framework. And in the process of time, the standards will be well articulated, which will be a common industry standard, hopefully. And then lastly, on awareness and sensitization. First, let me thank CRC. This is one platform you have also provided for us to create awareness and sensitization. If you look back at what we've done with sensitization with respect to cashless policy, you will know that we are always ready to engage stakeholders from the operators in the industry to the entire public in general. We will continue to engage the public and discuss the issues arising out of the implementation of open banking. And we are ready to get feedback and to also step in with necessary mitigants to things or issues that may develop as we go ahead in this journey. Thank you very much. I'll pause at that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akinwumi. So let me quickly go to Mr. Lowe now, please.
Thanks so much, Dr. Kupola. I think the first question I have here is, how does open banking impact me as an individual? And what should we be looking at as consumer business?
We can't hear you. We cannot hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now? Is it better?
Better now, yes.
Okay. So I said the first question I have is, how does open banking impact me as a everyday Nigerian? And what to look out for as a consumer or as consumers, businesses or as citizens? I think that question is very, very simple. How it affects the everyday Nigerian is that it allows you to be able to do financial services in the most seamless, easiest way possible. Like a common example that resonates with all of us is, I want to take a loan from a lender, a bank, an alternative lender, a state lender, an MFB. And maybe this is the first time I'm taking loans and I don't have credit history. But my lender doesn't mind to look at my statement using by granting them access to my bank account instead of having to go and get statement from the bank before uploading to them. They can connect to my bank account and instantly review my transaction and say that, okay, it looks like this guy gets salary every 25th. It must be okay. And his spending pattern it doesn't have a long period of no activities on his account. You can't see too many lenders coming to go for his money. Therefore, it's good for the credit. And to have access to it instantly. It means that I can have access to credit in 5 minutes, within 10 minutes of needing it. Now, this allows credit to be open to millions and millions of people. And because lenders have access to easy data now, their risk premium will reduce. So instead of charging prohibitive rates, which has what they call the adverse selection, right? Now they can have very good interest rate that will allow the everyday Nigerian that know they are good for the money to come and take credit. So credit will get to everybody. It allows me, for example, to pull all my bank information together into one single app. And I can open the app and say, okay, this is my balance in this bank, that's my balance in that bank. The average Nigerian today has over three bank accounts. And it's easy to get this because data from NIF says we have about 120-something million accounts and there are about 42 million BVN. So I believe all the bank account belongs to all the customers. So the next question also is, how is open banking different from CRC? Now, okay, and this is very easy to solve. CRC is a company. Even though it belongs to a consortium of banks, it's standalone, it's licensed by the CBN, it's out to make life easy for everybody and make money for itself. Open banking is a standard. Now, Open Banking Nigeria is a non-profit promoting that open banking standard, working with stakeholders, advocating with the regulators to allow or to compel or to encourage everybody to speak the same language as far as APIs are concerned. Now, and so the next question is that will open banking affect businesses or credit bureaus? So today, the credit bureau are licensed, are in the business of providing data to lenders or to people that want to do, to a small extent, those who want to do some sort of background checks on maybe senior people, government employees, and the rest of them. Now, open banking itself will turbocharge credit bureaus because it allows them to have access to more information than having to wait for banks to provide information in a certain way. So open banking will actually be a lifesaver for credit bureaus, because today I see credit bureaus struggle because once you go outside the traditional banking lending, when you go into the alternative lending space, practically almost 80% of those who want to take loans don't have records with credit bureau. It means that a CRT of this world will now be able to service practically 100% of everybody whose data is being required for credit processing. Now, what do we need to get right during the implementation? Right. Of course, this goes to CBN. For us, we'll say that it should be very inclusive. A lot of time we tend to do some things in the financial space from a banking point of view, but banking itself is for everyone. So CBN will have to make it inclusive, bring stakeholders from outside of banking, maybe from the telco world, from the alternative lenders, from mass FMCG, and bring them in, anybody that deals with large number of people, to also contribute and get their perspective on how open banking can transform their life. It should be technology agnostic. It should be, and then when it's done, there has to be a lot of public service enlightenment, because open banking is extremely confusing. And like Dr. Popola mentioned, even as we are here, a number of people are still asking questions, what is open banking? We can't, it's a concept that is very alien. So we can't look down on people. We have to go the extra mile to create public service enlightenment so that people can have the confidence that their data will not go the way of Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Butonade now.
Okay, thank you. I have 4 questions. I'll take 3. I'll defer one to Dejolawe, but I'll start. The first question is, how excited are financial institutions? Well, I'll say it's a mixed bag. And the reason why I say it's a mixed bag is that, let me take it from the perspective of even membership of open banking Nigeria. Dejolawe can tell us how many banks are members today, and I think that's because of some kind of apathy. They're not really sure. There's kind of resistance. They're thinking, will I open myself to competition? I'm not really ready in terms of my APIs and all that. But what I say is, the banks you see taking the initial huge strides are those who see new opportunities and are ready to to chart that course. And then I'll say that we should just encourage other banks and other institutions to take that big leap and join the bandwagon. And therefore, advocacy is very much required and continuous, so to say. Also, the question is still, okay, when this comes mainstream, is it going to be mandatory or is it going to be optional for some institutions? It's still the question we need to answer. But that's the current situation that I see from my own perspective. The second question is, how costly can this be? And I'll answer that by saying acquiring knowledge might be expensive, but what if we try ignorance, which eventually will be more expensive? So I'm saying that people should look at it from the perspective of this is an investment to survive and to grow and to be relevant in the new order and as things move forward. So it's honestly, to be quite frank, is implement or die, maybe a slow death, so to say. Because if you deprive others of the data you have, that means you're not sharing your data, then you also will be deprived of other people's data. And in the new order, you need data from everywhere. Just even take lending, for example. How far can you go if you don't have telco data, if you don't have data from other banks, if you don't have data from social media and so on to be able to qualify somebody for a loan? I rely on just the transactions within your own ecosystem. You can go far because others have that data and will soon be stealing your customers. Therefore, if you're not opening your data up, you're committing suicide slowly. And that's my advice to institutions who are still on the fence and thinking, should I join this bandwagon or not? Now, who are the critical stakeholders? I mentioned in my presentation, banks, fintechs, the regulator CBN, other non-banking financial institutions, other non-finance entities, telcos, insurance, credit bureaus, anybody who warehouses lots of data should be able to share that data and also be able to get data insights from other institutions as well. Also, we have champions of advocacy like Open Banking Nigeria. We have developer communities, for example, like FSI. And then we also have the likes of even my employer, Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, who's looking at supporting initiatives like this just to ensure that we reach our financial inclusion goals via technical assistance and also other means of support that become necessary as time goes on, consultancy and all that. The fourth question is how all said and done, how would this system look like? As much as I want to answer this, I think I'll defer this to DJ Lowe because I've seen him passionately share this dream, and I wouldn't want to miss the opportunity of hearing him share this dream again for the benefit of all of us. Over to you, DJ. How will this platform look like eventually? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Deji. So the truth is that sometimes people will say that a good technology is like magic, right? Magic because it's going to be invisible. When well done, we will not know that open banking exists. Nobody's going to talk when it's well done. Nobody's going to talk about open banking anymore. We are just going to take it for granted. And let me give you a typical example. Today, we all bring out USSD and do our transfer. We all bring out our phone and do our transfer, and then we don't think about it. But about 3-4 years ago or 5 years ago, it was a big deal, right? I remember when we were going to start ATM, at least Deji's, at your time at Treeline, at your time at GT Bank, you know, getting used to beg banks, please put up ATM. It was a big deal. We used to beg customers to come and take cards in the bank. Now today, nobody thinks about it anymore. In fact, by the first time, I think maybe it was First Bank that first started instant card issuance. It was so big. Now today, if a bank doesn't do instant card issuance, you are looking at the bank like, do you belong there at all? So in 2-3 years' time, we're going to look back at this time and say, oh, you mean we all used to gather around some virtual table and talk about open banking and everybody just laugh at me. I think at that time, we will say we have succeeded. At that time, we will expect almost all Nigerians to be financially included. I remember when I was younger, when we had about 100 million people in Nigeria and just 400,000 lines, nobody believed a time would come when only psychopaths will not have phones in Nigeria. Everybody has a phone, right? Today, about 4 years ago, we used to think internet was a big deal. Now, access to internet is so prevalent. Now you are seeing data being sold about, I think I've seen 10 gig for like 1,500, right? And so that's what I think is going to happen. It's just going to be pervasive. Credit will be everywhere. Now we don't have enough credit in Nigeria. We're talking about 51 trillion and Tunde is very excited about it. We will probably be doing 500 trillion in a year and nobody's going to be excited about it. Everybody will be able to have access to everything. The economy will grow, new companies will be created, new players, new leaders will emerge. And that's what I see the future look like with open banking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deji, for that insight. And Mr. Obutama, thank you for taking that question to him to ask as the most suitable to do that on this platform. And there is going to be one or two other questions for each and every one of us before we round up this session. I have now about 60 questions, and I know we can't take all the questions. I'm just so trained to read them and see, and some of them you can combine, we have combined them. So in your presentation and responses, you have answered quite a lot of them. So, Deji, lower now, will it open banking aid collection and management of delinquencies in banks? That's one. And then somebody asks, I guess this person is from a microfinance bank and is asking, so is that going to be an extra cost for them? And then, of course, they also have a lot of customers who are analog. That's the way it was put. Struggling to even understand, I mean, level of literacy is what he's referring to. How are we going to get them to appreciate what this is all about? So I want you to please just answer those two questions.
Okay, thank you. So for collections and delinquencies, right? Frankly, I don't think open banking can solve that problem. Why? Because customers that don't want to pay don't want to pay. We all have customers do their very best to move money out before the due date. You can't stop people. But what open banking will do is to stop you, is to make sure you identify those customers so that you never even give them a loan to start with. Now, when credit becomes pervasive and the ability to discover bad people become easier, what happens is that even those who don't want to pay, they know that, look, if I don't pay this time, I will never have access to credit. The reason why people are hiding today is because they know there's no way to catch them. The normal guy today who doesn't pay back knows that there's a high chance even this lender will not report me to credit bureau, so I'm going to escape. But when all these things become easy, and I'm laying something at the table for Dr. Popola and the credit bureau industry as well. As much as we are chasing banks around to standardize their API, please can you guys also standardize your own API as well? Because when you standardize your API and you make it easy to report with API programmatically, what will happen is that these bad people will not have any place to hide. But collection and delinquency cannot be solved by open banking because if there's no money in the bank account, there is nothing anybody can do about it. Now, would that be extra cost? I believe in the beginning, it may be expensive. Same way we are paying 20,000 for a SIM card in 2002, and now it is free. But I believe also that as the technology becomes very pervasive, the cost will drop rapidly. There are so many fintechs in Nigeria today that are probably ready to bring out cloud-based platforms, and with the support of CBN driving innovation, we believe that in a short while, the cost will be negligible, probably almost free. I don't think it's going to be expensive, but I'm not the one to pay the bills, but I suspect it should not be expensive.
Okay, so I mean, related to that is this question that talks about pricing model. The question says, do we have pricing model based on type of API? Examples of APIs I'm referring to are money movement APIs, data APIs, account balances, and transaction history or consent or identity APIs. I don't know whether you get the question, but that's what the question is.
Okay. So I understand a number of people actually get to ask us how much open banking will cost. I think open banking actually doesn't touch the business model. How much charge, right, is dependent on the bank, doesn't depend on the open banking itself. Open banking is just an access method. I want to make it easy for you to access something. Now, will I now make it cheap for you to access it? It's an entirely different ballgame. And we are trying our best not to get into that space because it's slippery. Even today, when CBN comes around and say, okay, you know what, I want to make financial services affordable to everybody. A lot of people will still scream and shout, why is CBN doing this? Let us charge anything we want. But we all know that making services cheap, right, and affordable allows it to become pervasive enough to become for people to actually even for processors and providers to make much more money on expanded customer base.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Obutanade, let's go back to this financial inclusion issue. Do you think, what concerns do you think are there on the provision of digital financial services for the unbanked? How do you think open banking will aid financial inclusion. I think you talked about it, but I think you should still dive, more into that. People want to know digital banking generally is supposed to make things easy for people to open accounts. It's supposed to, they don't need to visit branches, locations, or make physical presence to get loan or to open accounts. But how would this, deepen the more during open banking era?
Okay, thank you for the question. I have 4 points jotted down that I think if we can resolve them very well, we'll address this question much easier, in a very simple manner, and also achieve our objectives. So the way I see it, open banking, we achieve these 4 points I'm about to mention. The first one is ubiquity, and that means everyone have access to financial services. Right now, that's not the case because financial institutions currently do not see any viable proposition in going or reaching the last mile. There are lower hanging fruits that will make their shareholders happier at this very moment. But if data is shared, if open banking is available, then these financial institutions don't have to go and reach the last mile. They just see themselves as offering banking as a service, and let those who are hungry and closer to the last mile create the products or platforms that will reach their constituency. So therefore, we'll see ubiquity of financial services. That's one. The second one is cost reduction. One of the major reasons why the poor don't access financial services is currently the cost is huge, and why will I do 100 naira transaction? I be charged 20 naira. It doesn't make sense. So therefore, as we have more competition, more players, there'll be innovative and creative ways of reducing that cost. And also, hopefully with time, we also have additional help from the regulators in still bringing those costs lower for the last mile participants. Again, the security and trust. Currently, this same poor do not trust banks with their money. They've had bad experiences with fraud and all that. But hopefully, again, if they have their constituents who are closer to them, who they see every day, like the larger man, like the person selling provisions in the kiosk, offering these services to them, they feel much safer. They can place a physical identity to the person who is handling their finances. They will onboard them much more easier and in a much better manner. And the final thing is advocacy and education. We need to keep educating these people. We need to keep letting them know the benefits, making them see the benefits, making them being able to trust the system better, let them try and get more confidence. And over time, we'll see us achieving this goal of financial inclusion much, much easier with the help of open banking.
Thank you very much. So we'll be rounding up shortly, and I will give opportunity for the final words to each and every speaker at this occasion. But before I do that, there are some issues relating to the credit bureaus generally. Somebody asked, how can I request for my credit report for myself and my company? You can do that by going to our website. You can download it, pay for it online, and get it immediately. Like I said, also, we have CRC Mobile. You can download the app, CRC Mobile app, on through Google Play or Android. And then from your telephone, you can download your credit report or credit score, as the case may be. Somebody else also asked if there are differences in the report that institutions get from different credit bureaus. What happens? Yeah, so that's the essence. So the central bank has mandated the institutions they regulate that they should request for, credit information report from at least 2 credit bureaus, because they know that one credit bureau may not have total coverage of the entire Nigerian lending space. And of course, sometimes the information that is reported, even the balances that are reported sometimes is different from one bureau to the other. What then happens is that the lender will have a contact with the bureaus to sort it out before they can advance credits to you, if to do an update of such credit data before they can do an update to you. We'll be rounding up now. I want to give final opportunity for final word to each and every one of you in just 1 or 2 minutes. In doing that for Mr. Akewumi, you help us to talk around. Somebody says open banking cannot be truly achieved without the democratization of the customer's financial data. The Nigerian financial regulators, particularly CBN, will have to take a bold decision by giving directives allowing customers the control to share their financial data. So if you can just talk briefly around that in 1 or 2 minutes. And you also talk around, somebody says, do you see open banking encouraging the unbanked to build trust with the financial sector players? But part of what we have also is that lack of trust, which makes a lot of people not to patronize, especially the very low level, the bottom of the pyramid. So would this enable them, would this embolden them to build trust in the financial system? And will you compare banks to use this for data sharing? How is it going to happen? And then your final words in 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Doctor. In terms of empowerment of the customers, in fact, open banking gives the consumer the authority. The consumer suddenly will realize that his data is his asset and not that of his bank. And then you can leverage his data to access more products and services. So it's actually empowering for the consumers. And again, it's democratizing financial services in the sense that it gives options, it makes options available, it makes other parties come and join the financial services space and allows the user to make an informed choice to better access financial services at the best, at the most affordable price. In terms of trust, definitely we know that there is a trust issue in respect of customers and consumer bank relationship. However, I also see this as an opportunity where as we progress in the implementation of open banking, banks and other financial services providers may see opportunities in addressing those areas that have been gray, but which customers or consumers currently have sufficient data on. And through partnerships and collaboration, such data becomes useful in dimensioning products and services to them. And when the consumer starts seeing proactivity in providing services that are required or are desired by them through the use of data that ordinarily are not considered for the purpose of extending financial services such as credit, then they begin to see value in the propositions of the financial services provider. And in that sense, trust is built as they see them working for their, along their own objectives. And then finally to say that it's a new world and there are opportunities every day. We need to have an open mind, but at the same time, we need to ensure that all hands are on deck to make sure that our implementation is done in a way that keeps the customer as central to the open banking regime. So long as we focus on the customer in delivering or implementing the open banking regime, we'll be able to address most of the concerns that customers will have. And it will be an opportunity to scale as well. Because if today, like Deji alluded to, we are talking about 40 million Nigerians, and we are in an economy that we can have triple that number being within the financial services sector. With inclusion going at that rate, it's also an opportunity for all participants, both the stakeholders in terms of as operators within the financial services space, as well as consumers. So thank you very much. I'll stop at that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dejiolo. 1 minute of final thoughts.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, let me express my appreciation to CRC for bringing the industry together. Banking. For me, I'm happy because I believe we're on the right path. It may not be going as fast as we want, but we believe that we can transform this country by making credit and financial asset services for everyone. If we don't do this, we know very well that the future will be very bleak for the last 100 million Nigerians that have been born in the last 20 years, because Nigeria's population doubled in the last 20 years. And we know those people have their future ahead of them. And I believe we're going to do this. And I believe also that by the time it's done, we can all look back and kind of be happy that we put in this effort. Nobody's going to turn this country around unless we do it by ourselves. And I think the work is clear-cut between the industry players, the regulators, and fintechs and banks and everybody. So that's what I look forward to.
Thank you very much, Deji. Mr. Oguntonade, final thoughts? 1 minute.
Okay. Well, again, I also like to say thank you to Dr. Popola and the CRC team for bringing this to the fore. A very topical issue. And I also want to thank all those who have patiently waited with us for the past 2 hours. I'm sure you've gotten some good benefit for your time as well. My parting words are, well, open banking will not just democratize financial institutions and financial services, but it actually demystify financial services and thus leading to mass adoption of these financial services. So what am I saying? In the next couple of years, most people will not even know what traditional banks look like, because they'll be serviced by smaller players in their own communities, and they will get the best of service, the cheapest of services, and we'll just call it financial service utopia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think it's been a nice day. The last 2 hours has really been very, very, revealing, knowledge sharing, experience sharing, information as to what the future holds for us in the payment solution and access to credit through open banking. And I really want to thank, it's not my job, Peggy Tukmawos, who are head of business development, will come shortly to do that. But just to prepare you to say that later in the month, we'll be looking at developing a digital mindset for business opportunities and growth. What are the issues around digitalization for businesses, especially for SMEs? That's going to be the theme for our next webinar. We'll announce it shortly in the next 2 weeks. Now I leave the floor also to deliver the vote of thanks. Peggy, please.
Thank you very much, sir. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to present the vote of thanks today. We thank the Director, Payment Systems Management Department, Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Jimo, ably represented by Mr. Akinwumi, for taking time from his busy schedule to be part of this webinar. Thank you, sir, for your interesting and thought-provoking keynote speech. We also thank our distinguished speakers, Mr. Olowe and Mr. Oguntonade, for making excellent presentations, providing further insights to open banking, and making this webinar interesting and impactful for all. Our Managing Director, CEO, Dr. Tunde Popola, for being our host and moderator for the day, as well as our profound gratitude to the members of our esteemed Board of Directors, CRC Credit Bureau, for their presence and unwavering support. Thank you to the coordinators of this event, members of Team CRC, for making this webinar a resound success. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for choosing to be with us today and your questions and contributions towards the success of this webinar. We look forward to welcoming you to our next webinar themed Developing a Digital Mindset for Business Opportunities and Growth. As our Managing Director has said, we will be providing information on this to you shortly. We wish you a wonderful day and thank you very much for choosing to be with us today.
Thank you very much. Before we go, just two announcements. First of all, the three presentations, the keynote speech, and the presentation by Mr. Lowe and Mr. Oguntonode will be shared with their permission to all the participants. Please so be on the lookout. Be on the lookout for it, please. Thank you very much. And then the questions that were asked, I have 83 questions in total. Some of them we have not answered. We will look at them. Those that we think we should provide specific responses to, we will do that. If we need to get back to our speakers on them, we'll come back to you. Thank you. God bless you. Nice day, everyone. Bye-bye.